Hi, I'm Bert. Known Ralph and Roberta ever since. And since we both retired, they've been spending time in Fountain City, Arizona. And so my wife and I would visit with them once in a while, and we'd go down to Arizona for a couple of weeks in the wintertime. And whenever we'd arrive at their condo, Ralph would either be just getting out of the pool, or else he was in the pool swimming. He loved to swim. And I just talked with his son Brad a couple of days ago, and he said, yeah, Dad was always in charge of the maintenance of that pool. That must have given him the background to join our small general maintenance group here at House of Hope. We've been working together for many years, so we really value Ralph's friendship and his contributions to our small group.
Hi, it's Ellen, and one of the best stories I can remember is the day that Bill and I got married. We're right next door, and Ralph and Roberta let us take our wedding photos in their garden. It was pretty neat. And Ralph would always have a beer with Bill out on their back porch.
I just remember from ever since being a young kid, running through the garden, and you know, we always walked on the stepping stones. You couldn't walk on the dirt. That was their garden. You didn't want to ruin it. So I just, and no playing.
To you?
He was a member of SJMC, small job maintenance crew, and we would work together, work separately. He'd come every Thursday morning and drink coffee and eat donuts too. But we talked, and you know, it was 16 or 17 guys.
I know.
Oh yeah, we would paint in church, clean in church, not the big lawn.
I'm Eunice Grosham, and my daughter was best friends with her daughter.
What's the happiest memory today
And
so
when
far?
my daughter, who's next to me here, was for 3 months or something like that, she was on the EFS program. When she came back, we all, including the Etheringtons, several neighbors, several relatives, went down to the basement and raided Julie's closet and wore her clothes. And Ralph came out with her jacket on, letter jacket, with the dancers on the side, and her yearbook. And we all went to the airport. That was back in the day when we could go right to the gate. We went to the gate and welcomed Julie, and we all had on some of her clothes and were carrying some of her items.
I still remember Ralph in the letter jacket. That was cute with the orange yearbook under his arm.
Right. It was great fun.
Yes. You are?
So my perennial memory of Ralph is since I moved away in 1983 to go to college, every time I came back to visit them, first thing he'd say to me is, Julie, when are you moving back to Minnesota? That was the, for me, he's kind of family and home, and it was really nice to be welcomed and desired to move back.
So say your full name and your relation or connection.
Julie Grosham Ritchie. I was Jean's best friend growing up.
So, more recently, when Ralph would come to church, he would sit in the back pew, and he would have his cane with him, and he'd have on a bright blue sweater or something. I'd come over, shake his hand, and he always gave this great big handshake. Hey Mark, how are you doing? And he was vigorous, even despite his frailty. And that smile, that big smile, was always there. And the other thing that's my kind of parting shot of Ralph.
Hi, my name is Brad Hassinger, friend of the family, best friends with Brad Etherington. And his father and my father were both from the class of '53, and every time they saw each other, they'd say, hey, class of '53. So I'm going to miss that. Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, Ralph and I worked together for 40, 50 years, side by side. We were together from the time we were kids. Anyhow, they were talking today about that Ralph riding the bicycle in town to go to the movie. When he rode that bicycle in the town, it was to get me a bottle to set him up, because I was really sick of the flu. I mean, that was, you just can't imagine. He was the greatest guy. He was a good friend, and we worked together. We worked with Derry
did quotation marks landscaping, and all those trees along the driveway, we had them planted. Then we had picnic tables made in the backyard out of wood, so they're no longer with us. The wood, I mean. And it's just so. Oh, I love the Ralph story. Not too many weeks ago, Ralph was sitting in the narthex, waiting to go to church. He set up this end, and then the front door is way down. And this was typical of him. I was coming in the door, and he said, "Hi." I mean, he did this to everybody. Like just, "Oh, hi." But I mean, he was just that way, so warm and friendly. And,
Ted from Lake Christian. Okay.
We all hung out together. Ralph was a couple years older, but we went to a show on a Friday night. And on Friday we went out in the woods and put up some tents. And then we were going to come out after the show and go sleep in our tents. And we had to wait across part of the lake to get to our tents. And Ralph said, "No, I'm tired. I'm going to go home and go to bed." And we all went home, and the next morning the storm went through and tore up all our tents. There's a couple more, but they aren't quite as nice as that one.
My name is Jan Olson, my husband Roger here, and Roberta used to always plan our, what do you call it, night out. She did such a good job. She enjoyed getting together with them. Nice neighbor. Now we have moved from the neighborhood, so we miss them.
We always enjoyed them because they always both Roberta and Ralph had such nice dispositions, and they were easy to get along with. Always good for a couple of laughs.
Carolyn and Colette, and we lived north down from Ralph and Roberta. And Ralph was just the sweetest guy, and kind, and loving, and welcoming, and good to our kids, and same with Roberta. And they're just wonderful people.
My husband stepped away, but Dick Peterson and Muriel Peterson, we lived about, 4 houses down from them. They've lived in the same neighborhood as long as Roberta and Ralph. They were just great people, and they were both wonderful.
My name is Steve Wilson, and I'm the nephew of Ralph. So Ralph and Roberta were getting ready to go to China, and they invited Bob, Ralph's brother, and Vaughn over and announced this to them. And there was kind of a quizzical reaction on their faces, and Vaughn was the first to speak and said to Roberta, "Have you always wanted to go there?" And Bob then retorted, "Last goddamn place I'd want to go." So that's all I have.
I'll be on the editing floor. All I said is, as I drove up here, we were getting close, and I said 4631 Aquila Avenue North, so I knew that address since I was a little girl.
Oh. And your name?
Chris.
Where's the water tower?
And I saw the municipal swimming pool that we used to walk to. And Ellen and I used to play with Ralph and Roberta's mail slot.
There's a story that I remember. We were the family that was closest to the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport. And it was our privilege whenever anybody was doing international flights, people would come and stay for the night. And then, we'd talk and share. We'd get to gain your excitement for going on trips and be a part of that fun. And then we got to also pick up people as well. Rufus came down one time. He called on the way. And I was the only one home that day. He said, "Hey, could I drop my car off at your place? Bring me to the airport." Well, that was a moment that you can't create, because he shared stories with me on that day on the way to the airport. And it's those moments that you don't plan out that are remembered. So he made me laugh. He made me laugh. That's probably why I remember it.
When Ralph and Roberta moved to the home they're in now, they wanted to finish their basement. And I would come up from Mankato to St. Paul for my military drill, and I stayed with them. And for payment, I would help Ralph. And he said, "Is there anything you need?" And I said, "Well, I don't have a good saw, but I got a hammer and stuff like that." And we were paneling in the basement. Ralph said, "Oh, I bought a saw. It was a meat saw."
How'd that work on the wood?
Cut the paneling real well.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of staying at the Etheringtons, I know when Brad and I first got engaged, we came down to the cities to interview for jobs, that Minnesota private job fair, private college job fair. And we stayed with your folks, and we had to get up early. We had to be on the road, I think, by 6 to get to downtown St. Paul. And your dad had gotten up early and made us lunches to take with, which was so nice, because he thought we probably wouldn't have time with all the interviewing. And he was right, we didn't, but we at least had something to eat while we were interviewing. And we both got jobs. So there you go.
Winner.
Yep.
Oh, we were over here. I guess. So our coats were
Ralph,
here, right?
I used to love to read, and I read from little on, and go read to me. And this is a running. He knew my first language. We were reading the book Goldilocks, and he'd read it, and then I would read it, and all of a sudden it'd be Achiguchi nuts, blah 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 blah, Achiguchi nuts, and every time we saw each other, it was a little bit of remembrance. We would say that. But I was just a little babe. And I don't really remember it, but people tell me.
I've got another story. I'd like Stuart and Steve to chime in once I get going on the story. We're doing all this kind of camping, and we went to all these different state parks. But one time we went to a national park. It was Sand Dunes National Park here in Minnesota. And Sand Dunes, forest, a state forest, or a forest. So we were camping, and of course, after everything was set up, then it was like explore time. Had a couple hours to explore before meal. And we went out and we found something during the day that was
Snakes.
Snakes.
Yeah. They had rattles. They did.
Real rattlesnakes.
Well, they were bull snakes, I think. But they had rattles, but we thought they were rattlesnakes. Yeah, I remember that.
A nest of them.
Yeah, out in the middle of in a sand dune. Yeah.
Was it sand dunes? Was it also that there was an evening camping that we did one time? This evening story is the
Along
next
the
story.
trail.
And we were going through the woods, and we were running and doing our normal thing, right? And all of a sudden, boom! And we got spooked by something. What was that? Do you remember the rest of the story?
No, I remember some guy.
I don't know which this was.
It was
This is the one by the roller rink, was it?
No.
I thought it was
Sand dunes.
camping.
Yeah.
Was it sand dunes? And somebody was out.
Jean remember the name. Yeah, I think she got mortified.
Oh my!
She was scared.
In the middle of the dark, we were all just playing and having fun. Somebody.
It was a trail. It was a sandy trail, but it was outside of the campground area, but like the perimeter, and it was a hill. She'd walk up, and this guy came out, and I don't think he tried to, but he just was there. And, yeah, we ran back to the campsite real fast.
Yahoo! One more remembrance. I don't know if you remember this, Brad, but in 1968, your dad and my dad and you and I went to a Twins game, and Harmon Killebrew hit a home run.
On that game?
Can you name the lineup of the Twins for that game? Because I can't. I remember
He was
that
5.
game.
I'll go for it.
Rich Reese was playing first. Rod Carew was at second. Leo Cardenas was a shortstop. Harmon Killebrew was on third base. Cesar Tovar was a center fielder. Lou Holt was in left field, and Tony Oliva was in right. Behind the plate was George Mitterwald, and pitching was Jim Cott.
Oh my God!
That was the whole line. And we won. I can't remember who we beat them. I can't remember the team we beat. I think it was the Athletic A's. It was the Oakland Athletics.
Green
and Vida Blue was their pitcher.
Was this a real good story?
No, this is absolutely. You can look it up.
When you describe it, I'm starting to...
Do you remember it? And that was the old Met Stadium. So I would have been 8. You would have been like 5.
Right.
So I recall Grandpa Ralph taking me to practice defensive driving tactics on Highway 169 near his home in New Hope, and just had to make sure that you had. Now I think Neil said 3 seconds, but I think it was like at least 5 seconds behind anyone. He would always say before I left the house, "Be careful, and I'm not worried about you. I'm worried about the other guy." So he was very protective of us on the road, and he did come to so many of my shows and concerts and whatnot, and even though he was hard of hearing, he was there, and that always made quite an impression. He wanted to be there to see us and whatever we were doing. Probably most of all, I'll always remember Ralph sitting in a white t-shirt on a folding chair on the deck under the big tree in their beautiful yard. He just loved being out there. He loved grilling some dinner maybe at the end of the day. He always wanted to talk about old times, which we did, which was never really about old times. It was just more about what's going on today. That was just the code word. So those are some of my good memories about Ralph.